Good morning. It is 7:03 a.m. on Thursday, April 26th, 2018. I'm Christiana Ellis and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. Uh, Fun episode of So Many Levels last night. I was glad to get back into the thick of it there. That was a good time. And so that was fun. But I think what I was going to talk about today is I've been reading a little bit about the FanCon situation, where, first of all, I'm not going to claim any special expertise in it. I just read an article about it and I wasn't involved in any way. So, I'm not going to claim to have any unique information here. But if you are not aware of this situation at all, if you haven't heard about it at all, there was apparently a Kickstarter to have a convention that was designed from the ground up, or at least presented this way, that it was all about inclusivity and diversity and all of that sort of thing, being a fan convention, but with an emphasis on having a place for everybody. And obviously, I think that that's an admirable approach. But unfortunately, what has happened has turned into a whole big mess where it seems clear that there was either some really substantial mismanagement or perhaps even fraud involved, and that the event has been postponed, where it's not clear that it will ever happen, and there's a lot of people that are left financially strapped because they had bought plane tickets and reserved booth space and planned to ship merchandise that they were hoping to sell at the convention, and now all of that is not happening. And so having it get essentially canceled on very short notice, with a lot of contradictory information being put out. And again, this is a convention that was, largely funded with a Kickstarter to begin with, so a lot of the money has already been, received. And now it's not happening, and that's why, the whole idea of, it's postponed, is because they're essentially trying to say, well, your ticket will still be good for whenever it happens. Who knows when that will be. And obviously, it's a very dismaying, frustrating thing, I'm sure, for everyone who's really excited to go, and especially everyone who had any sort of a financial investment, like, having purchased plane tickets or whatever. So that's all very awful, and also just having something that seemed to be coming from a place of such positivity to have turned into such a mess is dismaying. I mean, I wasn't, I hadn't been planning to go or anything. I actually didn't even know anything about it until, this whole mess broke. But I was just reading this really elaborate, in-depth article about it, that was at womenwriteaboutcomics.com. And it was basically just interviewing a lot of people and doing some investigative reporting to try to piece together what's known, what's not, figuring out what happened with the whole thing. And it seems clear that at best there were some people whose reach far exceeded their grasp. And at worst, there may have been some people who were very deliberately intending to profit off of this, and either it went wrong or it was always the plan all along for them to pocket the money and have the convention never happen. We don't want to, who knows about that? I sure don't. But a lot of things went wrong, and a lot of people are out money, and that makes it a very frustrating thing. But I guess, I don't know, I've spent almost all the time talking about the setup, but the primary emotional response that I have, though, reading about it is actually I don't want to say that I feel sorry for the people who've screwed over everybody. That's not what I mean exactly. So much as someone who frequently experiences anxiety around the idea of organizing large things, like even relatively small scale things. If the idea is, if it's my job to organize something that involves contacting and communicating with a lot of people, that's something that actually presses my anxiety buttons in a fairly dramatic way. And, I can overcome it sometimes for some things, but certainly the idea of organizing a convention like this seems like a nightmare to me personally. I'm very, very glad there are other people who find that to be more in their wheelhouse. Because I like conventions, I just don't want to be the person trying to organize all that stuff. Um, but so the idea of getting involved with something that melts down in this way is like a nightmare. And I can just, it's even just imagining being in that situation. Certainly, in my imagination, I would be someone who was well meaning, but maybe not quite up to the task, and maybe taken advantage of by people with less pure intentions. And just all of that makes me. Uh, the idea of it is just terrifying. And so I am sure there are a lot of people who are involved who are basically finding themselves in that situation now, where maybe they wanted the best, but they just maybe weren't very experienced with this sort of thing, and maybe they got taken advantage of, and now it's all melting down. And I can't help but feel bad for those people. But obviously, at the same time, I don't want to diminish the idea that there are a lot of people who are like actual victims of this, as opposed to the poor person who accidentally victimized a bunch of people. So, I don't know. Anyway, it's all a big mess, and it's awful. And I'm looking forward to going to Balticon, which is a different convention, which is actually also in Baltimore later this month. And so that one is well established, though. So I'm looking forward to that. But just the idea of having, I don't know, just reading about this whole story, it's kind of sad. And my heart goes out to anyone who wanted it to be something better and has been disappointed, whatever their involvement. Anyway, I'll leave it there, so I'll talk to you tomorrow for 5 more minutes.